All right, this is Coach Lebo. This is for the Unit 8 review. So in class, we took this review and we worked on all the ways that we could use Desmos and how to solve it. On this video, I'm actually going to show you by paper and pencil how to solve it. And then I'm going to try, if I get enough time and if it doesn't take too long, I'm going to try to show how you can use Desmos to either check your answer or to even find the answer. Because I mean, every one of these problems you could use Desmos. If you know how to manipulate the formula, I mean the function, you can use Desmos to find your roots. And just about every one of these are wanting to find the roots. Okay, so it's important that you know what all the x-intercept words are: roots, x-intercept, solutions, zeros. Those are very important that you know that. All right, and so I'm going to take the first problem, and I'm actually going to do each problem on a separate piece of notebook paper. So I'll go back and forth so you can kind of see it. So see number one there? I'm actually going to take number one, if I can move my pen paper right. I'm going to take number one. All right, and I'm going to do number one. All right, so here we go. So the first thing I want to do is they want us to use the square root. All right, so in class, we talked about have to move this over. So I'm going to move my square root over. So look at the x squared. What's being done to x squared? It's a minus 10. So the opposite is plus 10. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides of the equal sign. When I do this, I get x squared equals, now that cancels out. It's a zero pair. And 54 plus 10 is 64. All right, now we talked about this in class, and I'm gonna make a little extra spot so you can see this. So I'm doing the same thing. All right, so I'm gonna take the x squared. The opposite of x squared is the square root symbol. So I'm gonna take the square root to both sides. When I do this, it's like saying what times what will give me x squared. Well, it's actually x. So really, when you see these, it's just like the negative 10 and the plus 10, it kind of cancels each other out. Well, this one kind of cancels these symbols out. So the square root and the square kind of cancel each other out. And so the only thing we have left is the letter x. Now, the next one is 64. All right, so you have to figure out what's the square root of 64. All right, so what they're asking is what number times itself gives you 64. If you don't know that, then you can take 64 in class like we did, and we came up with a factor tree. Now, we really should, common multiplication is 8 times 8. All right, because the index, that's the little number that's you don't see inside it because it's a square, it's a 2. All right, and that means we pair them off. If you find a pair, that means that goes outside the radical. Well, if 8 and 8 are the only pair and there's no numbers left over, that means nothing goes inside the radical. And so my answer is 8, but it's a plus a minus 8. And the reason why it's a plus and minus 8 is, think about it. What two numbers give me a positive 64? Well, you could say positive 8 times a positive 8, or you could say a negative 8 times a negative 8, because two negatives make a positive. That's why it's a plus and negative. So my answer here is actually going to be, and this is the way we normally see it on a test or something, it's a little bracket, and they could put plus or minus 8 like that, or they could write it minus 8 comma plus 8. And it's very possible you can see it as a point, negative 8 0 and 8 0. Those are the points. Now look at the difference. Parentheses contains an x and y, so this is an x and y, but when it's a bracket, it's a set, so they're both x-intercepts. So what does this mean? So I'm just kind of going over this one time. It means this is the x-intercepts. It means that my parabola is going to cross at negative 8 and 8. It's going to cross the x-axis in that area. That's what this does. So those are the three different ways they could write it. So number one, the answer is plus and minus 8. All right. Okay, so that was number one. All right, so now we're going to look at number two. I went and I'm changing pens because that was a little dark. I got one a little darker. So here we go. All right, so here we go. We want to, first thing is, if you notice here, is that see how the parentheses is being squared? There's a number outside the parentheses that's being multiplied. So we want to get rid of the number outside the parentheses first before we try to do the square root to both sides like we did before. Since this is being multiplied, the opposite is divide. Let's do it in a little brighter color. Three divided by 3 is 1. And so only thing I have left is x minus 4 squared. 3 goes into 60 20 times. All right, so here we go. We're going to do the square root to both sides because the square is on the parentheses. So I'm going to square root the whole thing, and I'm going to square root the 20 because you have to do it to both sides. So I'm going to square root here, and I'm square root here. Remember, the square and the square root cancel each other out. So I have x minus 4 equals the square root of 20. All right, so now I'm going to move the 4 over. Now, don't forget, this really is plus a minus. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I told the kids in class, make sure, or told everyone in class, make sure it's just right to put the number first. So it's going to be 4 plus or minus the square root of 20. All right, this could be your answer. I'm not kidding you. Some tests they could leave that the radical not simplified, but we're going to simplify the radicals. So the 20, I got to look to see if 20, what two numbers give me 20, and most kids say 10 and 2 or 2 and 10. So I bring down my 2. 10 is 2 and 5. The index, see here, is, and all these are going to be squares. So that means the index is a 2. That means we want to pair them, put them in pairs of 2 or pairs, and there's a pair. Now in class, I said that the O that we circle is looks like the word outside. It's the letter O for outside. And so we're going to have a radical. This 2, because it's a group of 2s, we're going to put a 2 outside because it's a group of 2 and it's outside the circle. Whatever's not circled goes inside. So I still need to put 4 plus or minus x equals. All right, so this really is my answer. Now, again, if we were to have a test, you could have 4 plus 2 square root of 5, comma 4 minus 2 square root of 5. And then we could put these in the graphing calculator, the calculator or Desmos, and it would give us the actual decimal form, the actual, okay. I mean, I say that's a rounded. This is the actual number right here. The estimated is the decimal one because you're going to have to round it off. So it's not really the actual or, the exact number, where this one is the exact number in this case. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do number 3. So number 3 is the same, is almost like this one, but a little bit bigger. And it's combination really kind of the two together. So I'm going to write this one down. All right, so there we go. All right, so we got to look at the parentheses because it's like a square. I mean, think about it. It's kind of like when we look at this parentheses with a square on it, it's like looking at x squared. And we're going to look at what's being done to the x squared. It's being subtracted here. It was being multiplied to this. I mean, really, technically, that's going to be x squared. All right, so I have to get rid of the add and subtract first. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. And I'll bring everything down. This is 0 pair, it cancels out. So we just mark it out. 35 plus 15 is 50. All right, now we have the same scenario that we have up here. See the number next to the parentheses? And so we have the number next to the parentheses, and the parentheses has a square on it. So we want to get rid of the number. So since it's being multiplied, we're going to divide both sides by 2. These guys cancel out. Well, they don't. The 2 divided by 2 is 1 actually, and 1 goes into that, so it's still the same number. So it's x plus 2 squared, and 2 goes into 50. How many times? 25. All right, got a square. I got to get rid of it. So what do I do to both sides? I take the square root to both of them. And when I do, this is going to be x plus 2 equals a plus a minus 5. I mean, the square root of 25 is what number times itself gives you 25, and that's 5 times 5. So like again, like here's 25, what two numbers multiply? It's 5 times 5. It's a pair. So the pair goes outside, and since I have no numbers that are left over, I don't have a radical. So I'm going to move the 2 over. So I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides of the equal sign. This is a 0 pair, so it kind of disappears. Bring down my equal sign. Remember, this number goes first. So we're going to say minus 2 plus a minus 5. Now, what does this mean? All right, so this is a little bit different. It's, you got 2 problems here. I mean, if you notice, just about all of them, we've had 2. Sometimes you'll have 1. Sometimes you won't have any. And so in this case, I just want to show you. So what this means is you have negative 2 plus 5, and the other one's going to be negative 2 minus 5. And so you just do your math here. This will be 3, and this will be negative 7. So x will equal, and I'm going to use the little bracket, negative 7, and I'm putting negative because it goes for, it's smaller, and 3. So these are both my x-intercepts. This is where my parabola is going to touch. There's negative 7, there's 3, there's where they're going to touch, and we're going to have a parabola touch both of them. My pen's going out, figures. Touch the x-axis. This is the x-axis at negative 3 and 7. Okay, and that's how you do 1, 2, and 3. All right, the next one is solve by setting up the quadratic formula. All right, so the quadratic formula is this formula right here. It's x equals a minus b plus a minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And we're going to divide that whole thing by 2a. All right, so I'm going to do number 4. I'm going to write it down, and then we're going to do it in class. Trying to make a little bit more room for my, hopefully this will work. Okay, so number 4. It's x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, and so I like, and I'm going to do this, I like to do this. Remember, we want the function, the quadratic function in standard form. Okay, so if you look, everything's on one side of the equal sign, and there's either 0 or a y on the other. If there's not one, we got to move stuff, and I've got some examples for this. So I like listing my a, my b, and my c. My a is the number that's in front of x squared. So here's my x squared. Do you see a number here? If not, ask yourself, how many x squares do you see? Well, hopefully you say, I see one of them. So my x squared, my a is going to be a 1. My b is in front of x. So what's in front of x? A lot of kids say it's 2. Well, the sign goes with it. So it's really negative 2. So we're going to put negative 2. The c is the number that's all by itself. There's no letter with it. It's just a number. So you can see it's 3, and it's negative 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the quadratic formula, and all we're going to do is plug in, substitute. That's what the fancy math word really is. All the numbers in for all the letters. So here we go. All right, so my negative b. All right, so x equals, if that's a negative, my b is a negative as well. All right, so I have 2 negatives here. So I have a negative here, and I have a negative 2. And you should know that 2 negatives make a positive. And I'll clean it up after we get through writing everything down. Square root. All right, this b is going to be a negative. Now remember, this 2 is squaring all of b. So I'm squaring all of negative 2. Just to give you a heads up, this is going to always be positive. No matter if you put a negative number here or a positive number, it's always going to be positive. Some calculators, like the TI calculator, if you put 2 square in there, it's going to square. It thinks that you're squaring only the number and not the negative. So it'll tell you the answer is negative 4. When you really meant, hey, I got negative 2 times a negative 2, all right, which makes it a positive 4. And really, that's what it is. It's positive 4. So in this case, be careful. This is always going to be positive. So if you put this in a calculator, it's always best just to leave the negative off and just say, hey, I know it's going to be positive. All right, this is a minus. I need to make that a little bigger. That's a minus. My 4, it's always a 4. the A is 1, the C is -3. And then we're going to divide the whole thing by 2 times 1. All right, so this is where it gets really helpful to have a calculator. All right, because you can plug all this in at one time. I'm going to clean this up. That's a 2. I don't need to put +2, just 2. Plus and minus, all right, square root. And so we're going to multiply and subtract these all together. All right, that's 4. All right, that is 4. This is going to be -4 and a -3. That means 12. So altogether, it's 16. All right, and then the 2 times 1 is 2. All right, so that could be an answer. Remember, 1's going to be 2 plus the square root of 16, divide the whole thing by 2, or 2 minus the square root of 16, divide by 2. All right, and so and that's what we're really doing. So what is the square root of 16? You want to see if you can break it down. And 16 is really 4 times 4. It's a pair. And because it's a pair, the 4 goes outside and there's nothing that goes inside. So really our answer is 2 plus or minus 4 divided by 2. And again, this separates it into 2 problems. 2 plus 4 divided by 2 and 2 minus 4 divided by 2. Now, if you're into this in a calculator, make sure that you put, or decimals, make sure you put parentheses around these. So you can actually say 2 plus 4, open parentheses, 2 plus 4, close parentheses, then hit divide by 2. So it should look like this on a calculator. Okay, you got to do it that way. If you don't, it's going to take 4 and divide 2 into 4 because of PEMDAS, and then add 2. So you got to tell it, hey, you got to get the sum here first before you divide by 2. Same thing here. You got to get this answer first before you divide it by 2. And you can probably do this in your head. 2 plus 2 is 4. I'm sorry, 2 plus 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. So 6 over 3, 6 over 2, the answer is 3. This one is going to be -2 over 2. So the answer is -1. So my x-intercepts is going to be -1 and 3. That's my answer. Number 5. All right, so here we go. Same thing. I'm going to list I got to check see if it's in standard form. It looks good to me. It equals 0. So my a value is remember is in front of the x squared. So what number's in front of the x squared? -2. What number's in front of the x? You see up here. All right, so the number in front of the x is 2. And the number that's by itself, we see it's 4. Go use the same formula. I'm going to plug them in. My negative is negative. This time my b is a +2, so it's just 2 minus b is going to be 2 again. It's going to be squared. Remember, this is always positive no matter what. 4a is a -2, and my c is a 4. All over 2. You got to be careful. I do this all the time. The a is a -2, so we got to put -2 here. So here we go. So I'm gonna put this in the calculator. -2 square. I mean -2. 2 squares 4. This is 8. -8. 16. 32. So if I'm going to say 4, that's 16 is 32. Let's plus 32. So that's going to make it 36. And the reason why it's a positive because you have a negative and a negative, and 2 negatives make a positive. So this is going to be 8 times 8, which I'm sorry, 8 times 8. 8 times 2. 4 times 2. Geez, I'm just having problems talking. My brain's calculating the math before when I'm talking. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 4 is 32. So in 32, since they're both negative, is a positive, and that's a 4. So that's why it's 36. All over, that's -4. This is very similar to what we just saw. So here we go. That's going to be -2. Plus, what's the square root of 36? Hopefully you know it's 6. And we're going to divide it by -4. The bottom one is -2 minus 6, and we're going to divide that by -4. Don't forget, you got to put these in parentheses if you put it in a calculator and type it in just like you see it. This is going to be -2 plus 6. Oh my gosh, is 4. And you're dividing it by -4, which makes the answer -1. -2 and a -6 makes a -8. Now be careful, it's not two negatives make a positive. You're adding and subtracting, not multiplying. So it's like if you borrow $2 and you borrow 6 more, you actually owe $8. All right, so a -8 and a -4. Now see, now you're multiplying and dividing, so that makes a positive, so the answer is 2. So here we go. My answer, my roots are -1 and 2. And remember, this is where your line is going to cross the x-axis at 1 and -2. All right, let's do number 6. Remember, every one of these problems that we're doing, you really could just put in Desmos and it will tell you the answer if you know what you're doing. All right, so here we go. Quadratic formula again. This is A is 1, B is going to be 2, and my C is a -12. Quadratic formula is -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Divide the whole thing by 2a. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in. All right, so x equals, I have a negative, my b is 2 plus or minus. My b is positive, so it's square, minus 4. A is 1. C is a -12. All over 2 times 1. Okay, so I'm just going to do the math. I mean, you know, hopefully you can use a calculator. I'm actually doing this in my head. So there's 4. That's 4 and 12. That's -8. -8. 48. 4 times 12 is 48. And since there's 2 negatives, it's an add. So this is going to be 52. So it's going to be the square root of 52 over 2. Now, again, you could have 2 answers here. One's a -2 plus the square root of 52 divided by 2, or a -2 minus the square root of 52. And I'm going to show you that. So that way you don't forget, it's -2 plus the square root of 52 over 2, or -2 minus the square root of 52 over 2. Now, this is the unsimplified version, okay? If you look at 52, you've got to determine, can you break that down? What's an even number? So I'm going to divide it by 2, and I get 26. So that's 2. That's an even number, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and now it's 13. Now, 13 is a prime number. The only number is 13 and 1. It does have a pair. So here's what we really see. We see -2 plus or minus. The 2 goes on the outside. Remember how I said a pair, if it's circled, it goes on the outside. And what goes inside? The 13, because it's not circled, and put a 2. Now, again, this could be, I mean, there's so many ways they could write this answer. 2 square root of 13 divided by 2. Or you could say -2 minus 2 square root of 13 divided by 2. You could have those. These are the same answer decimal-wise. So if you put this in a calculator, you're going to get a decimal. You put this in a calculator, you're going to get the same decimal. Now, there is a special thing here, and I want to show you this. So I call this the Dorito chip method. And the reason why I call it the Dorito chip method is because one time I was using a red pen and I was showing it on the board and it looked like a Dorito chip. So if you look, we talked about something called inside to inside, outside to outside. And what we said was that if these are the ways we can, like we can multiply inside numbers to inside numbers, we can multiply outside numbers to outside numbers, but we can't do an inside to an outside. Here's what I mean. This is an outside number. This is an inside number. All right. If I had 2 insides, I can multiply them together. If I have an outside and an outside, I can multiply or divide them together. In this case, I have 3. I messed up on my Dorito chip. All right. Those 3 numbers can be put together. And so the best way to look at this is this 2 goes with this, and this 2 goes with this. So watch this, -2 divided by 2. Plus or minus, this 2 goes with this. So it's 2 square root of 13 over 2. Outside to outside, 2 goes in a -2 one time. 2 goes in that one time. 1 times the square root of 13 is the square root of 13. So here's my answers. I could have -1 plus the square root of 13, all right? Or I could have -1 minus the square root of 13. Both of those are acceptable. This is actually acceptable. -1 plus minus the square root of 13. Now look, if I put this in Desmos and got a decimal, it would be the same number that I would get this. So this decimal, this will answer in decimal, this decimal, this decimal, and this decimal are all the exact same number in Desmos. All right, so let's get going. We're on number 7 now. Number 7 is the one down here where you're simplifying expression the radical. And so I'm going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. All right, so number 7, here we go. The square root of 7,200. All right, the index is a 2. It's always going to be a 2. We aren't doing cube roots or anything. So I've got to simplify. So I got to think 2 numbers multiplied together that will give me 7,200. I like the 2 zeros here. That reminds me of 100. So I know if I take 72 times 100, that'll give me 7,200. 2 numbers multiplied together, the most common is 8 and 9, and 100 is 10 times 10. Now remember, we're looking for pairs, and there's a pair. So I'm not gonna break this down. I'm gonna keep bringing down my pairs. If I got a pair, bring it down. 8 is 4 times 2, and 9 is 3 times 3. Now there's another pair. So I have a pair of 3s and a pair of 10s. All right, so I'm going to keep going down. There's 2 and 2. There's a pair. All right, keep bringing down everything, but don't reduce them anymore. So I have a pair of 10s, I have a pair of 3s, and I have a pair of 2s. Now, you see how they look like O's for outside? So, and they're all 3 different. Now, we haven't seen one on this review like this, but we have talked about it in class. When you have more than one circle, okay? So we have a circle of 2s and we have circles of 3s. We multiply these together and the answer is 6. But this one, we have 3 of them. So we have a circle of 2s, we have a circle of 3s. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 10 is 60. So 60 goes outside the box. Here's my box. What's left over? 2. 2 is not circle, so it stays inside the box. And there's my answer. Now, when Desmos, we said that we could put this in a calculator or Desmos, it'll give us a decimal answer. All right, and actually, I remember it's 8485, okay? We rounded off. That's why it's called an estimate, not an exact. This is the exact. If we put this in Desmos, we're gonna get the exact same number. Exact same, okay? Number 8, square root of 60. All right, so pick 2 numbers, multiply together, give me 60. I'm thinking 6 and 10. This is gonna be 2 and 3. It's going to be 2 and 5. All right, do I have a pair? Well, hopefully you can see you have a pair of 2s here. So what goes outside the box and what goes inside the box? The pair of 2s goes outside. I don't go 2 times 2 because this is a pair. It's like together, not, see how there's 2 of them? They make a pair, so it counts for 1. These 2 are not circled. So 3 times 5 is 15. It goes inside the box. Now, there is a way you can check this. I want to show you this. You take the outside number and you multiply it to itself. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 15 is 60. The same way here. 6, think about it. 6 times 6 is 36. Put a couple of zeros on there. That's 3,600. Multiply that by 2, you get 7,200. Number 9, and we'll put number 9 right here since it's another small one. 3 square root of 50. Again, we're going to take 50. What 2 numbers give me 50? 2 and 25. 2 and 5 and 5. And there's my pair. All right, now this one you got to pay attention to. There's a number already outside. Remember what we said? Outside to outside. This is going outside. I have a 5. So really it's going to look like this. 5 times 3. And what goes inside is 2 because it's not circled. So 5 times 3 is 15 square root of 2. So that would be my answer. And again, if you put this in Desmos or your calculator, you're going to get a decimal. You put this in there, you're going to get the same decimal. All right, we got a couple more. Looks like we're going to be doing 10, 11, 12. Looks like some more square root to find a solution set. All right. So number 10. X squared equals 81. Remember this, we take the square root because it's a square, take the square root to both sides, and X is going to, these are going to cancel each other out. So it's going to be X equals plus a minus, and what times what gives me 81? 9. So my 2 answers are -9 and +9. That's my X-intercepts. Number 11. X squared minus 12 equals 12. All right, so we had this very similar to before. So what's being done to x squared? It's being subtracted. What's the opposite? Add 12 to both sides. So this is x squared. This is a 0 pair, it cancels out. This is 24. Now you're going to take the square root to both sides. Remember, these two cancel each other out. So the only thing you have is x, and you have the square root of 24. And don't forget, it's a plus or minus. All right, so I got to figure out what's the square root of 24. That's 6 times 4, 2 and 3, 2 and 2. Circle my pairs. All right, so here we go. Plus or minus 2 on the outside. These are not circled, so multiply them. That's 6. So x equals plus or minus 2 square root, or you could say brackets 2 square root of 6, comma, minus 2 square root of 6. Okay, number 12. All right, number 12 is like the one we did earlier. Notice I don't have anything on the outside of the parentheses or added to the parentheses, so I'm going to do the square root to both sides. So I'm going to do the square root. And when I do this, I get, they cancel out. The only thing I got left is my parentheses. And since I don't have anything outside the parentheses, it's going to be plus or minus. And what's the square root of 144? If you don't know, there is a button on the calculator that will help you. We talked about it in class, but it's 12. All right, so now I'm going to subtract 5 to both sides. I like putting the number first that we just moved over because you have the plus and minus in the middle. And remember, now you got two answers. You got x equals minus 5 plus 12. Then you got x equals minus 5 minus 12. This should be, let's see, minus 12, that's a 7. This is minus 17. So x equals negative 17 and 7. Those are my solutions, my x-intercept, my square, my roots. All right, I'm gonna turn the page for the next one. All right, so we have a word problem here, and I wanted to turn this over so you can kind of see this. All right, so I'm gonna write the equation here. You see this right here? It's really hard because it's kind of small, but I'm gonna write this down. This is number 13, all right? H equals negative 16t squared. Now we talked about negative t squared in class. All right, so hopefully you'll remember. Okay, so there it is. All right, so they like giving you this and they like to tell you a story and have you fill everything. So we're gonna fill in. Lauren dove into a swimming pool from a 15-foot diving board. Okay, so what was her starting point? Well, she was 15 feet up in the air. The S here is our starting point. So we're going to put 15 there. With an initial upward velocity is the V word, and look, there's a V right there, velocity of 8 feet per second. So we're going to put plus 8t. T is representing time, just like we talked about in class. This one's the same, so it doesn't change. So there's your equation, all right? Now, we can find many ways to do this. The best way is to put it in Desmos. Put it in Desmos and watch it graph that way. I'm going to go ahead and do it mathematically. Now, we didn't do this in class, but I'm trying to tell you is how you're looking for the answer. All right. All right. So here we go. It's asking us to find the time. So they want us to find t, okay? Find t in seconds and look to see when Lauren enters the water. So we want the height, look, it says here, let h represent 0 for the surface of water. So we want this to equal 0, okay? Remember, this is really like the y, so we want y to equal 0. So when we're gonna, and I'll tell you what, it's probably easier to do the graph here because you get to use Desmos. We're looking for where y is 0. That means we're looking, this is x, this is y. We're looking for when the parabola, and I'm just drawing this, I can't say that she's 15 feet in the air, so we're gonna say this is 15. We're looking for this spot right here. We want to know the time that it took her for jump to get here. Okay, when she hits the water. That's all we want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pause this just for a second, just so I can get the screen ready for Desmos. Okay, so I should be able to see both of my screens here. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the equation you see over here on the screen. I'm going to put it here. And this is how they could do how you can do all problems. This is H, so I'm going to put H. I mean, we could put Y, we could put H of T. I mean, most of them, be honest with you, they'll say, like, because there's a T right here and there's an H, they'll want you to put this, but it doesn't matter as long as, I mean, you could do it that way, okay? All right, so here we go. Negative 16 T squared plus 8T plus 15. Now, this is what we did in class. All right, so here we go. This gives us more of a visual of what we see here. All right, and this is important that you understand you can't have this over here, because where does she initially start at? She initially starts at, and I'm going to zoom in. All right, so remember, she actually starts at 15. She's standing right here on the diving board. Now think about it. Why does it go up? Because she jumps up. So this is her max height right here. All right, this is her initial. This is her max height. All right. All right, so we want to know when she hits the water. All right, so the water is 0. So I'm going to scroll down here. Here's 0. See, this is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So this is where she hits the water. And all I have to do on Desmos is click the button there. Now, do you see here? It says 0. So how long did it take her to hit the water? Well, X represents time. So that's like 1.25 seconds. So that is our answer. I mean, we really could do it that way. So X equals 1.25 seconds. And that pen is running out. I need to get the other pen. There we go. X equals 1.25 seconds. All right. Now we could solve this using the quadratic formula. We can do the exact same thing using the quadratic formula. All right. And I'm going to show you what this means. All right. So if I was to use the quadratic formula, I would say negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to show you the setup. I probably won't spend that much time on it because most kids will use Desmos. My b is an 8, so it's a minus 8 plus a minus. My b is again an 8, so it's 8 squared minus 4. My a value is a negative 16. That's huge, isn't it? Negative 16, and my c value is a positive 15. All over 2 times negative 16. All right, so then you can see you would actually use a calculator. You would actually calculate this, and then you would find out what the answer is, okay? And so if you put this all in a calculator, just like we were practicing, you're going to get 2 answers. All right, one will be a negative answer, and one will be a positive answer. So if and so we're going to, I mean, we can put it in here to see. In fact, we might be able to put it in here. Let's try it because we're going to put Desmos in here. So we're going to say negative 8 plus, and it's probably wiser. Let's put parentheses first because we're going to tell it negative 8, just like we did in the classroom, plus square root. So I'm going to go here to square root right there. And then we're going to say 8 squared. What I like about this, you can just type everything in, minus 4, open parentheses, negative 16, close the parentheses, open the parentheses, 15, close the parentheses. All right, you see how we got that? Now we're going to get out of it. I don't know what it just did, but it was not right. Okay, here we go. And so we're going to here we go. And then I'm going to put divide by 2. I mean, you can put it just like it's 2. Let's just put the answer to be safer, negative 32, because it's a negative 32. All right, if you look, it says a negative 0.75. All right, now let's put the other one in. All right, so here we go. Same thing. In fact, I wonder if you can copy this. Let's see if we can. I don't know if we can. We're going to try. Copy. All right, we're going to try. Hopefully this might work. Might not work. All right, look, there we go. Except this time we're going to change the minus to a positive. Oh, I did the wrong one, didn't I? Minus. Oh, I see what's messed up. Right there. This is supposed to be a minus. There we go. Okay, I just had it. So I copied and pasted and I had to change. See how the beginning is a plus this and then a minus this goes plus and minus. Look at this one. This one's a negative 0.75. This one's a 1.25. All right. This is time and time can't be negative. So on my paper here, I would have x equals, and when I did the two problems, like I said, one was negative 0.75. The other x is 1.25. And we're talking x represents, and in this case, we say x, but it's really t because t. So really, this is t, and this is t, and that's t, actually. I mean, they're all t, but we use the letter x for the equation because it's the x axis. And these are the t's for time, which is x-axis. All right, so anyway, if you look, we can't have a negative time. You can't go back in time. Time's never negative. It's always positive. You never get younger, you get older. So this has to be my answer because it's a positive number. And if you look, that's why it's here. If I looked back on my table here, like we said, we click here and you can see, look, there's 1.25. All right, so that worked out pretty good. All right, let's go to, that was the word problem. All right, so she hits the water in 1.25 seconds. All right, so here's another one. This one's a profit one. Now I'm just writing it down real quick so I don't have to. Okay, so this is the profit one. All right, it says here, a company earns a profit P. I'm reading this right here. Earns a profit P. So P represents profits by selling X items. Okay, so it'd be like shirts. Maybe you're selling, you have a business, you're selling shirts. All right. You have to buy the shirts and then you have to do something to the shirts to make a profit and you sell them. According to the equation, there's the equation I copied. How many items? That means they want to know. And I forgot the x squared on this guy. Gosh, man, I didn't like messing up today. They want to know the x values. All right. So they're going to tell us the P. So this right here represents, and if you read it, it says $482. So this really is $482. They want us to find the x value. All right, so we get the same thing in decimals. So we're going to take this, we're going to close these out. And I'm actually going to type this equation, but without, instead of 482, I'm actually going to put P of X. So we're going to put P of X. So P of X, I can type X equals, and I'm going to type this very same problem in 0.5 x squared plus 40x minus 300. Okay, so there's our equation. And I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit. Remember, we're looking for 482. So I'm going to, in fact, see, you would have to scroll because this is y. This is the y value. P of x means y, so this is the y value. So we know this is the profit. This here represents the number of shirts we sold. So we're going to try to find this out. We're going to zoom out. All right, ooh, there's a, remember that we're looking for 400. All right, so 482. I'm struggling getting my, there we go, 482. And you can see it's close to 500. So if I hit, I'm looking for 482. So I can actually, this is 400, that's 500. So halfway would be 450. So I'm going to click right there. All right, I'm trying to keep it there if it'll hold for me. Oh, there's 450. All right, remember y value, the x value. So the 30 here represents if you sold 30 shirts, you would have $450 profit. All right, so I'm looking for when it's 482. So notice how I'm doing this. 42. So you can sell 34 shirts. Now, wait a minute. What if I went over here? Could I make $42 here too? Yes. So I could sell 46 shirts, or I could sell 34 shirts. All right. So how many does the company have to sell to make a profit? How many do they have to sell? Well, they have to sell at least. So you take the smaller number because that's what they're asking you. They're asking when can you start making a profit? Well, you got to sell 34 shirts to make a profit. You got to. All right. So my answer is 34. So I would have to say X equals 34 items. We just use shirts as an example. Now, why is it the other one? If you notice the other one, this is the peak. So this is the maximum number of shirts they can sell to make a $40, to make a profit. I mean, to make $500, they're 40 shirts. Then they start losing money as you start making more shirts, you start losing money. So you want to make 500 shirts to get the maximum, 40 shirts to make a maximum profit of $500. All right. That's how you do those problems. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next group, and I'm going to enlarge. We'll probably come back to Desmos a little bit later. I like these. You can't ever, you have to, okay, so here we go. All right, so we're gonna go back here. Now, we just did that one. Now, number 13 is a messed up question. I actually messed it up. I did not put what I wanted on here. So we're gonna do 16 and 17. You can put these in Desmos and you can find the roots and the factors, okay? And we're gonna put them in Desmos. The first thing you need to know in this is what is roots? Roots are the x-intercepts. So roots, x-intercepts, solutions, and zeros all mean the x-intercept. It means this part right here where the parabola touches the x-axis. Factors are the parentheses of the two binomials that multiply together that give you a trinomial. We did the box method on these guys. All right, so we're going to take this, we're going to plug this in Desmos. I mean, that's the fastest and easiest way, and that's what every kid will do. So we're going to take this and put it in Desmos. We're going to find where it crosses the x-axis. All right, so here we go. I'm going to shrink this. All right, it's very simple. Doesn't take very long if you can do this. All right, so watch this. And we'll probably do the rest of this in Desmos so we can kind of go this a little faster. So I'm going to hit this. All right, so I'm going to type number 16. I'm just going to type it in just like you see it. And this is what we've been doing in class. We've been practicing typing stuff incorrectly. Okay, so there we go. And I got to change my zoom back to default because we zoomed out. All right, so there we go. Now look, see the x-intercepts? Here they are. It's 5 and 7. So we know these are 5 and 7. So I'm going to put in 0, 5, 0. All right, that's one, and I'm going to label. There it is. All right, the other one was 7 and 0. And I'm going to label that one. All right, so there they are. Those are the two, and I'm going to zoom out. So those are my x-intercepts. Now, we want to know, did I not put the right one in? Oh, I didn't click label. Okay, so those are my x-intercepts. Now, roots are the opposite. So what I mean by that, if you look at my screen, is that the factors are parentheses. So I'm going to put the factors, and I'm actually going to write it like this. Y equals, open parentheses, this is a 5. So I'm going to make it x. Now, the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. So negative 5, close the parentheses. Now, I'm going to do the other one. This is a positive 7. So the opposite is negative 7. So it's x minus 7. and close parentheses. Now, if you look at my graph, see how this is in green? Look at my graph, it's in green. All right, so like if I if I turn this off, it's black because this is black. So this and this are the same thing. See, look, green, black, green and black. Oh, let me do it this way. Okay, see how the same thing? So this is correct. So these are the factors. So when you put this in Desmos, you find the roots, the x-intercepts, the two guys touching the x line, and then you do the opposite. So if it's a negative, if it's a plus, you make it a negative and put an x like this. You put it in parentheses. If this is a positive, you make this a negative, and now you have it like that. And these are your factors. All right. So let's do another one. So number 16 was number 16. The answers were negative, and I'll write them down so you can see it. All right, so we're going to go to the next one. I'll show you the answers written down so you can see it later. All right, so the next one, we're on number 17. So the question is y equals x squared. All right, plus 7x plus 10. All right, so there's my equation. Look for the x-intercepts. Look, it's right here and right here. So there they are. And so I can actually label them. I'm just showing you how you can label them. I think it was -5 and 0. And I like to label them so I can see them. There's that one. I think this one was 2. Yeah, 2. So we'll go here and we'll do the same thing. -2, comma, if I could type, -2 and 0. All right, label it. And look, there's that one. And so do you remember the factors are the opposites? So I'm going to say y equals, open a parentheses, and then the first one will be x. And so instead of -5, I'm going to say +5. And then close the parentheses, then open the next one. Instead of -2, I'm going to say x +2, close the parentheses. And then look, that one's blue. This one's purple, and you can see they're the exact same thing. All right, so that is the next one. Right, the next question, and I'll show you what I'm talking about so you know where I'm at. All right, so the next question, it says, what are the solutions of the equation? Solutions mean x-intercept. So we're doing the exact same thing. I'm just going to put these y equals. No, this is 0. I'm going to make this a y and then put y equals all this. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing we just got through doing. All right, so here we go. And I'll try to keep the screen split so that way you can see both of them in action. So that way you know what I'm doing. All right, so here we go. I'm going to delete this, and delete this, and this. All right, so here we go. I'm putting this equation just like you see it. So we go y equals 2x squared. All right, -5x -12. All right, so there it is. All I got to do is find the x-intercepts. Look right there and right there. So those are my x-intercepts, and those would be my answers. So my answer would be, you can do it in parentheses where it's -1.5, 0 and 4, 0, or you could say x equals the bracket with a -1.5, 4 with another bracket. Both of these my brackets are horrible, I know. All right, so they're like that. That's my answer. They're crossing the x-intercept. That's how you do it. Remember, you get to do this on a STAR test too. So we just learning all this stuff. This is what we're going to be doing a lot of practice in the next month. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this one, and I'm going to type in my next answer. So the other one, remember this says =0. There's no y, so I'm going to put a y anyway. Y equals. I'm not going to put =0. I'm just going to put y equals. So we hit 3x squared. All right, hit tab, plus 8x minus 1. Okay, so there we go. And so you can see here, look, there's one answer right there. There's the other one right there. And so I can see the two right there. So I can say my solutions are, I'm gonna make sure I type it in right because I do have an issue sometimes not typing things in right. And that looks like my answers. Did I put it in the right spot? Just to make sure. Okay. So one answer is x-intercepts are negative 2.7, we'll round up to 9. And the other one is 0.12. Okay, and so those are my x-intercepts. I could put them in parentheses. I'll do that too, so that way you can see them. All right, and that's how you do it. Now, look how easy this is with decimals. I'm telling you, if you pay attention the next month or so, everybody in my classroom should do very well on this. Now, I do want to talk to you about this one more time. I'm not going to go over this, but I just want to kind of show you that we did this in class. Now, look, you could do the same thing what we just did, like over here. It's the same thing. You just make them y equals, put them in, don't put equals 0. Same thing here, put y equals, put this in, don't put 0. This one here is already y equal. You can even put these in here and get them in decimal form, okay? You can do these even in there. So like this one, I'm just going to show you. You see this one, there's no y. So I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to move it over. So I'm going to say y equals, we're going to put x squared, all right? Oh, I didn't put the square. Square, see this? And then I'm going to hit, now this is a minus 10. So I can put subtract 10. Now I got to move this 54 over. I can't leave it there. I got to put everything on one side, just like this. See how everything's on one side instead of equal 0? I'm going to move this over. So this is a plus 54. So the opposite of plus 54 is minus 54. All right, and there you go. Look, now remember, we came up with the answers 8 and negative 8. All right, so if you look here, negative 8 and 8. That was the exact same answer that we got before. Same answer. All right, so like look at this one. I'm going to turn this one off and do the next one. So the next one, you can do the same thing. Y equals, we type it in just like you see it, x minus 4. Close the parentheses, put a little square on there, tab over. Now see, look, this one, I got to move the 60 over. So instead of a plus 60, the opposite is minus 60. So I'm put minus 60, and there we go. Now this one, if I remember right, and I'm going to show it to you. Remember I'll get on this paper here. I know this is a long thing, but I really want to make sure I cover everything. All right, so like number 2, remember this one, we got the square root, and I said, hey, you get the decimal, and look, here it is. All right, so if I look at this, I can actually click on this, and look, there's the decimal form, and there's the decimal form. All right, now I could put our answer in here that you see here, and I want you to see what it is. I'm just going to put 1 so you can see. So I'm going to say 4 plus, if I can type plus, 4 plus, and what is it? 2 square root of 5. And look at this. You see this right here? And then if I go over here and touch this, look how they're the one's rounded off, but you see how they're the exact same thing? 8.472, the exact same thing. And I can put the other one into just the same way. All right, so the big thing is that if you had a multiple choice test, if this was the A answer, you would have to put this in decimals to see if you get the same decimal as if you got the thing. It's just check and balance. Okay, I mean, that's basically how you can do everything that we've learned in the last couple of days. Okay, so make sure you, if you have any questions or anything, just give me a holler.